functional solutions should be adopted in Indian cities. Third, playing with natural material and a sense of risk taking. In the first picture, what we see is basically playing with what wooden structures, with ropes, with sand, and in the right hand side, we see the picture of a kindergarten. Now, if we can see that kindergarten, we can see the spaces where water is flowing and small toddlers, they go along such spaces. Whereas in India, as of now, our mentality is to be so much protective for children that we don't even want to send our children to such spaces which can prove hazardous. So I think that is a concept which we took along from Copenhagen, is that we should be a bit daring, we should be a bit having more trust on our toddlers. We should send them to natural places where they can have their fine motor skills refined in an educative way. Then this is the same as unconventional play area. Now again, this is one concept which was very much appealing. The public places in Copenhagen, basically we have a concept of an integrated space where we have different kind of spaces, one for toddler, one for old age people, one for young children, and all those spaces are coexisting within a larger public space. I think those kind of concepts are missing right now in India. Either we are designing the spaces only for toddlers, either we are designing the spaces only for old age, or we are designing the spaces only for young children like playgrounds. But the concepts of a place where all cohorts, all age cohorts can play together, live together, enjoy together, I think those are missing. I think that approach can be borrowed from Copenhagen. Then policies. Now again, it was very surprising for us that we have audits for playgrounds, for play equipments. Such kind of awareness is still missing in India. Basically, majority of the cities, we don't even have such kind of inspectors who are equipped to have audits of playgrounds, whether they are safe for children or not. Now, this was the first concept, first part of the presentation in which we talked about what were the key learning areas in Copenhagen. Now, let us talk about how those learning areas we aim to inculcate in the planning of Indore Smart City in times to come. Okay, talking about green spaces, the first aspect. Since we have come from Copenhagen, more than 104 green spaces have been reclaimed. Plants have been planted over there. We have ensured water supply through existing wells and step wells in those areas so that plants will survive. We have ensured boundaries in those areas, either through a pakka wall boundary or channeling boundaries. But one major concern for any kind of a green space, especially in its initial phase, is that it should not be destroyed by the cows, buffaloes, goats, and other small children who are using them as playgrounds. So the safety aspects, the connectivity to water supply have been taken care of, and this is exactly the concept that we have been trying to promote, is that we should reclaim spaces. In each and every resident welfare association, we are going, having meetings, we are reclaiming the spaces, turning them into green buffer zones. Second, backlands. In the last 5 years, Indore has started a whole cleanliness drive, which has been going on a mission mode. Now, now that our backlanes are clean, we are trying to convert those backlanes into an educational places for children, for toddlers especially. Thirdly, we are working on air quality index in Indore. Three aspects we are mainly working upon. First, having behavioral changes in people of Indore by having missions like red light on to engine off, in which more almost all the students of Indore are participating. Then we are having initiatives in which we are converting the loaders from diesel based loaders or kerosene based loaders to electric loaders. And thirdly, in the industrial areas, we are trying to convert the boilers which are currently running from diesel or wood mass or biomass to CNG based boilers, which is a cleaner fuel. So these three aspects we are trying to do post this Copenhagen visit. Now, depending upon how we can initiate more public spaces suitable for toddlers. Now, this is one initiative which we are very proud of. Our local carpentry workshop has taken its form in the last 1 month. Now, we already have a city forest in which all the refuse wood of whole city comes. But we are not even using that wood. Sometimes we are just auctioning the wood, and most of the times it is lying waste over there. So we have a carpentry workshop in which we shall be making now various kind of artifacts which shall be used by the toddlers. For example, what we can see the pictures at the bottom, we are just using the planks of woods in order to convert these public spaces into some things which will be used by toddlers, basically giving life to the concept of wealth to waste. So I think this is one major contribution which has been done as a result of the visit of Copenhagen, that our carpentry workshop is now finally ready. As I just told you, waste to wealth is our motto. And now that the workshop is ready, sky is the limit. Whatever we can find on YouTube, there are so many ideas. In Copenhagen, rather, we got 3 booklets in which there were so many ideas depicting the use of wood in order to convert such public spaces for educational activities. So we shall be implementing all those things now. Evidence-based planning, basically whatever the National Green Tribunal guidelines are, in which we are seeing how the 30-meter space nearby the rivers are to be encroachment free, and rather they should have only trees over there. So the Saraswati and Khan River redevelopment project has been taken by Indore Smart City now, which is going on in full flow. And what we are trying is that in times to come, all these 30-meter perimeters around the smart city area shall be cleared of any kind of slum rehabilitation, and such areas will be having natural pathways, walkways, in which we are trying to promote more plantation also. In times to come, we shall be seeing the cleaner rivers also. As I just told you, making back lanes very play friendly. Our back lanes are already clear of debris, of dust, of refuse. Now we want to further convert these back lanes, and we shall be doing in times to come, into child friendly back lanes. Now, the concept for this has come because what we have done in the last 1 year is to convert such kind of small spaces we have reclaimed and made them as hawker zones. 6 months ago, we used to see hawkers roaming throughout the areas of Indore. Now we have dedicated hawker zones, and now we don't have issues of parkings, of issues of traffic congestions, because those hawkers used to be standing only on the roads. We have reclaimed those areas to be used as hawker zones in a span of just a week. So, having the similar concept, we shall be reclaiming the back lanes and using them as child friendly areas. And developing sense of ownership, we are currently, just as I told you, in making those and reclaiming the 105 green spaces. In the span of last 1.5 months, we have involved RWAs. Again, we shall be involving more RWAs, converting these places, reclaiming the places which have been encroached in the form of parking sheds, and then breaking the basically the pakka, the concrete structure over there and planting more trees over there. So this is the plan in times to come. So 40 parks have been identified in which we shall be having balancing boards, stepping stones, tunnels, bridges, rope climbing, sensory parks. Already we are having such kind of concepts in the form of 4R activities, the reuse, recycle, reduce, all those activities already are taking place on a very pilot basis. So we are going to expand those concepts, and using the workshop that we have made recently, all such artifacts would be placed in these 40 parks. So these are just the photos of the on the World Environment Day when we reclaimed those 105 places. So cleanliness, we are already worked upon in the last 5 years. The back lanes are clear. Now we shall be converting those back lanes into the children-friendly places. Policy level interventions, one last thing. Amendment to the draft master plans are being made to include all such kind of green spaces, to include the ITC lens in order to plan for the city. The final draft plan is going to come next year. Current final plan is going to come next year. Currently, the draft is basically being worked upon, and advices and objections from citizens are being taken. So currently, we are basically using that draft master plan in order to include such kind of lens in it. Lastly, what do we expect people to say at the end of such implementation? That yes, my colony's back lane is an exciting place for my infant, that bridge is a safe place and a fun place for my toddler, and the park in which I meet and where I make and where new moms can make new friends, that the children could be able to play independently. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir, for those interesting learnings that you shared and how they are culminating into the plans for Indore.
Thank you.
Now I call upon Dr. Shubhankar Mohapatra from Rourkela. He's the CEO of Rourkela Smart City and also the Commissioner of Rourkela Municipal Corporation. So please share your learnings with us.
Namaskar, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
Namaskar, sir. A very good afternoon to everybody who are present. Uh, as far as the Copenhagen study tour was concerned, it was a very learning based and a very good tour, and it helped us to reimagine and imagine a lot of new things based on a lot of things. So, as sir has already mentioned, all the detailing, as a lot of people who were there in that tour are here. I had written a poem then. The poem virtually summarized all those things that was learnt in Copenhagen. So I would try that. So most innovative things that we learn, as sir said, is about nature-based play. What we have started to incorporate is what we saw in in the Scandinavian countries, basically the usage of wood. A lot of things are made in castles because their culture basically Rosenborg Castle or Amalienborg castles. So what we want to incorporate in Rourkela is the tribal culture that this place has. Tribal culture, usage of our own natural materials, our own traditional Odia festivals that we have, the Indian festivals that we have, that such that every child or every adult connects to those things. So we have to integrate both nature-based and thing in India. And another thing is in our sensory garden, we have already started using the wood, as I was saying, wood-based materials already been starting. We will be going through that. Next. Anima, next. Next is not right now, I think. So this was one thing which we would like to incorporate. Cities have incorporated is something about the traffic park. This was something which was new, and on a small scale, we would like to incorporate to have this rules of learning about traffic in our city of Rourkela. A place has been earmarked for the same, so we are working on the same. Next. So as far as the library is concerned, a lot of things in the library that we saw were planned for children exclusively. For example, the usage of colors. Normally, the colors that we use are basically from the engineer's perspective and the architect's perspective, but not from a child's perspective. The use of pastel colors. Normally, if you see the the self width in a standard library is that of 6 to 12 inches. But when you have those small thin books and those fairy tales for children, they're basically smaller. So if those cells could be made further thinner, and so basically in Rourkela per se, as a learning, we are also developing a library and an exclusive segment for children. Next. Next. This was actually taking the year of repetition. I would like to repeat the poem which I had written as learnings from. If other people are there, I would like to explain the details also. As tour, as you say, is the Viking war cry, which says to go onwards, because as you know, the Vikings are something we connect the Scandinavians and Denmark with. So if you start, the boulevard that was developed was called as the Sonder Boulevard. So it is like the line says, the Sonder Boulevard, where you could walk and dream again. In a wrecked Trinidad ship, a child can fun regain. Because as you see, ships, they were a part of the Viking culture, because the Vikings virtually sailed in a ship, and the ships were made of wood, and the connectivity that was there. In brilliant colors and playing with your pals, what fun can be reading, as we saw in the Westerbro library. In brilliant colors and playing with your pals, what fun can be reading, shooting for the stars in wooden castles where guns were once blaring. This is in reference to a particular area which was once a training ground for armory and guns and armor ground. That particular area had been remodeled into a playground and a community playground. So that is what we learned from that, that all these areas which were once used for a different purpose can be remodeled for our own purposes. In Rourkela per se, we had one particular area where there was excessive water backlogging, and it was the photos will be shared soon. And we have already reclaimed that piece of land, and we are converting it into a nice park. So as we said, Rourkela is basically a tribe and cosmopolitan where more than three local languages are spoken. So as it is an integration and year of cultures, so we want to integrate all those cultural aspects in our framework. Besides that, all these Anganwadi centers, we have taken up 5 Anganwadis, which can be developed using the early childhood, their own language. For example, the languages here will vary from Sadri to Sundargadi to Santali to Orao and to Odia per se, which is the language, and Hindi, because Jharkhand influence is there. So we want to have children incorporating all those elements in their daily learning. Next. This is, as sir said, the fact that we have to be we have to brave that out. Like as sir said, it is right or it is fine to be hurt. So as the poem says, it's fine to be hurting knees and bruising elbows. It is fine to be hurting knees and bruising elbows, because sometimes to embrace the open light, there would be some shadows. To avert mortality, we inspect and we prepare. In fighting rising seas and bursting clouds, we ought not despair. This is in reference to making our projects climate resilient, as sir was saying. Innovating, even parks could harbor water to channelize and use better. In changing tires to swings, breaking your walls, you could be a trendsetter. So, as sir said, a lot of parks were changed such that they could harbor the water when there was sudden influx due to cloudbursts. So, as far as my city is concerned, in Odisha, we have something called as the Catch the Rain campaign, in which we plan to make around 25,000 rainwater harvesting structures across the state. I'll be happy to inform, sir, that Rourkela has crossed its target of making 2,000 rainwater harvesting structures. We have already done it, and by this monsoons, they're all ready, and the site locations are all done. So we're trying to incorporate, as you can see here, the Mission SHG groups. They are in this photo. The Mission SHG groups are basically women self-help groups who have been entrusted with making this rainwater harvesting structures across all Anganwadi schools and government places. So we have the climate resilience part has also been a project which has been undertaken under the Rourkela Smart City. Next. So this was something which we were shown something called as a Gale app. A Gale app is a computer-based app where you stand and you decide how much of the public is actually using a space. So that which was developed by Gale as the architecture firm, and it made us learn that all decisions have to be taken, have to be data driven. So as the poem says, that to take decisions driven by data and public life to observe, in the landscape of our children, we learn to nature preserve. To return to imagine, to return to imagine, to skate and dance in the rain, to return to imagine, to skate and dance in the rain, to share tiffins in the open recess without any strain. As you see on the side, that is a space in Copenhagen which has been created, in which schools came up one school came up to use that space as a public recess could be done. So it says to share tiffins in the open recess without any strain. We have done a GIS-based mapping and ITC-specific data across our 80 slums that Rourkela has to understand the gap analysis and the various child-friendly areas that can be developed. Next slide. Next. Next. So this is for the cycling thing. So to learn to bike by jumping every lane, that is one thing, because Copenhagen is the cycle capital or the bike capital of the world. So it says to learn to bike by jumping every lane. That is relevant to India. We jump lanes quite often. In future, to be spirited, pirating, and a cheering Dane. With your father to ride your first zip line. Zip lines were virtually something which our parks normally don't have, but you are trying to incorporate. As a community caregiver, you can always shine. One thing we saw in Copenhagen was the ownership of the community. That SSGs, for example, here, a lot of SSGs take that responsibility, but their community caregivers took a lot of responsibility of this child play areas. So that is one thing we have learned. So using that around 7 kilometers of road, 7 kilometers of road with a complete street concept we're trying to develop in Rourkela. Along with that, with the concept of Rahagiri also, we are planning to have various street events, and including the fact of children participating. Next slide, please. So this is something is the reclamation. A lot of public land was reclaimed. So in that, the line says, and we saw in one particular place, even the beach area, which was a landfill once, it was nearer to the sea, and that area was reclaimed. So the poem goes as such: we can even reclaim the landfills. We can even reclaim the landfills, the beaches, and the sea. With our design, it's just a little creative we have to be. We can even reclaim the landfills, the beaches, and the sea. With our design, it's just a little creative we have to be. In inclusive mosaic photos, people always look the best. In inclusive mosaic photos, the very context of this line, let me explain. What actually happens is we came to a playground, which is a community playground. Community playground is where people of a different ethnicity or a different, this is something which is very relevant in India actually, because we have people like, we have differences of caste, differences of class, differences of tribe, differences of ethnicity. So to create a public space where everybody can come together and use together that public space. So we saw a community playground which was for all those migrant communities and communities which were not inherently Danish had also were also there. So to that is the line which says, because we had a group photo at the end where people from India, people from Jordan, people Gregors is there, Gregors and Selva, then all people, we were all there in that photo. So it says in inclusive mosaic photos, in inclusive mosaic photos, people always look the best. To be able to make our playground theirs is always the biggest test. To be able to make our playground theirs is always the biggest test. Next slide. Next slide. So basically all urban pockets that we are trying to convert them into another place making marathon. Next. Some issue. Arunima is in... Okay. So this is the ending wala thing. When the mother and child, this was there in one of the parks. It says, let's create spaces with intimacy, but remembering our legacy. Because this is relevant in the Indian context, because our legacies might differ from the Scandinavian legacy. Let's create spaces with intimacy, remembering our legacy, leaving behind the strife, backyards bubbling with life. This is something we learned from Jordan, in which they had created across this refugee migrant spaces, where they had created very beautiful backyards. living behind the strife, backyards bubbling with life, places where we once could, places our children should. Places where we once could, places our children should. These places, my own, their own, and our own, they should tell. These places, my own, their own, and our own, they should tell. Let's show them that life indeed is the greatest fairy tale. This is in reference to The Little Mermaid, which was Hans Christian Andersen. We remember that as far as Denmark is concerned, Hans Christian Andersen wrote The Little Mermaid, which is considered as one of the best or one of the most life-changing fairy tales, tales ever written. So it's like, let's show them that life is the greatest fairy tale. So in context of that, as I said, in addition, what Rourkela is doing extra is we are trying to make 4 cabin libraries with play areas for children. Next slide. So in addition, as far as trees, green spaces are concerned, I'll do it fast. We are doing a plantation drive because Rourkela will be hosting the Hockey World Cup. Next slide. Hockey World Cup. So in reference to that, around 1 lakh trees we are planting, which will start with the current in the first one Mahotsav season. Then, as all our model Anganwadi centers, one Anganwadi around we're spending some 15 to 20 lakhs with all the model facilities. One thing that we're doing is our Anganwadis are integrated with all the maternal facilities. As you can see, the Mamta Griha, which is there, it is basically all facilities which a pregnant woman and a mother and a lactating mother would receive. That is in integration with the Anganwadi center. So it would be a one-stop solution for both the mother as well as the child. So the funding basically we have from the corporation and from the district mineral fund that we have. Next slide. Next slide. So all these are being built and the work has started. We'll be completing 20 by the end of over a year. We'll be completing. Next slide. The main focus in the slides on our projects would be on the slum areas, and because slums are basically at the margins of the city, I have 8 slums. Basically, we are under the state. We have something called as a Jaga mission, in which all slums are getting delisted. From street lighting to sanitation to open spaces to playgrounds. So basically, as far as toilets, open spaces, mini parks, and all those things are considered, we've already given close to 300 projects, and they will be also completed by the end of this year. So these are all playful libraries, and under a lot of schemes, we are all trying to converge. And as I said, we are planning 10 cabin libraries in slums, which will fulfill needs of around 10,000 population. This is the end of the library. This is something as parks are concerned. We have already upgraded. 6 parks have already been inaugurated. More 24 will be inaugurated on the 25th of this month as we celebrate the 7 years of the Smart City mission. So all these parks, this is one of the parks. All of these parks will be managed by women self-help groups. They will be managed by the community itself, and they will be paid remuneration from the RMC and from their own maintenance purposes. So we plan to, and one sensory park, as we said, catering to all people with disabilities and autism that we are already developing. That will be completed by the end, by 15th of July. So 10 rainwater harvesting structures have been done. And in addition to the 2,000 rainwater harvesting structures that I said, plantation drives have already been started in all the Anganwadi centers. Next. So as complete street concept is a 7-kilometer street. As far as walking tracks are developed, walking tracks are now being developed across the entire city in a prelude to the Hockey World Cup. The Hockey World Cup indeed has given a lot of opportunity to develop a lot of areas as the entire facelifting of the city is being done for the Jan 2023 event. Then we are increasing the number of breastfeeding pods in order to provide privacy to women, to lactating mothers, and all public spaces. Then we are planning to go for a data and evidence approach across all vulnerable areas. Next. So the basic thing we plan to, I'll end this slide with this is the mermaid, the statue of the Little Mermaid, which was there, and it sits in hope, and it sits with thing that all things will be done in times to come. And if it is not done, as the dialogue in Mehuna goes, it is not the end. So we expect ki everything, all of these things are achieved, and we make our neighborhoods safe, secure, smart, and what, and satiating and satisfying for our children. With that use of alliteration, I would like to sign off. Thank you everyone for a patient hearing. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir, for that really interesting take on narrating the learnings. We'll definitely remember it. And also, there has been a request to share the whole poem so that it can be shared. And now I call upon Mr. Sambhav Ayachi, who is the Assistant Commissioner of Jabalpur Smart City, to share his learnings.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Sambhav, Assistant Commissioner from Jabalpur and Nodal Officer for the Nurturing Neighborhood Challenge. So I would like to thank my team, Jabalpur Smart City, Jabalpur Municipal Corporation, WRI, BVLF and Mahua for giving us an opportunity to learn inclusive and children-centric approach of city development from one of the most eminent examples of Copenhagen. So in the upcoming slides, I'll be presenting learnings from our Copenhagen tour on behalf of Jabalpur. So next. We have experienced Copenhagen from various lenses of planning, social infrastructure, policy level intervention, resilience, sustainability, and enforcement of policies. We also got a glimpse of how to bring about behavioral change through varied mechanisms or methodologies, which is the ultimate goal for our city development. So we'll go through the slides to share our experiences and learnings and how we are incorporating those learnings into Jabalpur's vision, that is basically Jabalpur for all. So next. Basically, one of the most innovative approach is to see that Copenhagen was made a decision to reject car-centric planning and decided to be champion of citizen-centric design back in 1960s. So like it was interesting to see how adaptation of design approach is inspired by kids' perspective of the world. So this is well reflected through modal split for Copenhagen, where we have where they had 6% of walking and 41% of bicycle mode share. So this was reflected on plan where we have 4 kilometers of bicycle path for 1 square kilometer of land. So the quality of living has seen substantial increase with Copenhagen's decision to adopt children and family centric design. Next. So one of the most unique examples that I came across was the pre-primary school of Copenhagen. The access to the school was converted into a safe street by reclaiming the plaza, converting the access street into a slow street intermediately, and ultimately converting it into a pedestrian only street. So impact of this intervention could be measured by the increased number of families, especially ITCs, visiting the streets and spending more time. This not only helped to create safer access, but also to have comfortable and engaging waiting spaces. This example is important for Jabalpur, as we are also trying to convert a street with multiple schools into a children-centric street. Next. So this is another example of innovative approach of commercial and mixed use slow and an empty street. We also have we are also developing a similar non-motorized transit corridor in Jabalpur, and street like these ensure safer walkability and are evident of attracting more families to visit. So next. Another interesting learning was to study nature-based planning. There were number of urban spaces which were converted into green open spaces, and natural reserves were conserved to ensure resilient approach of development. And also Jabalpur also have 200 acres of urban forest. So we are also focusing on nature-based planning and incorporate some learnings from our Copenhagen tour. Next. So this was also a very unique thing which we saw in Copenhagen, our unconventional play with natural material. So most Indian cities, including Jabalpur, never had a practice of going beyond conventional play, but Copenhagen gave us exposure, encouragement and understanding of positive impact of using natural materials and exploring unconventional play on children's mental health. So this is an example of how children can be involved into activities to respect nature and grow in natural environment. Next. So this was also like one of our great learnings from Copenhagen tours was like multifunctionality of the playgrounds. It was really interesting to see children of different age groups playing in the same playground and without having any sort of like conflict. So such kind of approaches are we are also like adopting over here in Jabalpur. Next. Again, so like it was interesting to see theme-based open spaces which will prepare children for independent mobility. Over here in Jabalpur as well, we are trying to incorporate ITC lanes into mobility sector. We are developing our city mobility plan, so we are having a dedicated chapter of ITC lanes in our CMPs, and also we are like planning to create some such similar traffic parks. The pre-feasibility study has been going on as of now, and we are trying to incorporate child-friendly bus stop in our busy church street over here in Jabalpur. Next. Again, we saw like there were several toy libraries with different sections ensuring varied activities for all age groups. Like this was a very unique concept, and we are trying to incorporate like our Anganwadis with toy libraries and pocket parks. So like now we are trying to develop some holistic sections where we will be having like Anganwadis, the toy libraries, and the some nature-based play as well over here in Jabalpur. Next. So we also learned about how planning can be integrated along with specific zones with specific type of users. Like like I said before, a same playground was divided into different sections, and every single section was like full with students or children of different age groups, and everyone was like playing simultaneously in the same field without having any sort of conflict. So we are also working on some similar designs to work on our green and open spaces over here in Jabalpur. Next. Then the policies for children-centric development. This experience was backed by strong policies and enforcement for children-centric development. These ensure like children-centric way of ideation to implementation of monitoring social behavioral change. So even incorporating such similar learnings for in Jabalpur, we are also like we got to know about the master plan, which was like I think made by Istanbul. I think so under Urban95. So we are also like seeking technical support from WRI, and recently we have also signed a MOU with WRI, and we have also initiated to develop our play master plan over here. Next. So in the further slide, we'll talk about like how Jabalpur is incorporating these learnings into our city's vision. Next. So as Jabalpur, we in Jabalpur we always like think of nature first approach. So Jabalpur is conserving natural reserve and creating natural trail for better growth of children. And as a first step towards this, we have already like planted 33,000 trees at Madan Mahal Hills. And we as an agency have experienced the behavioral change and are now promoting nature-based play instead of standard play equipment. Like prior to this particular visit, we were actually focusing on installing some children standard play equipments in existing parks. But now our vision has totally changed, and we are now focusing more on the nature-based play thing. Next. Jabalpur has also planned for a network of pocket parks adjoining ECD amenities and neighborhood level parks offering multifunctionality spaces for families. We strongly believe in the utilization of like the multifunctionality of our parks, and our focus of development would be on targeting varied type of neighborhoods, developing open spaces and reclaiming dormant spaces for public use. Like we have seen in Copenhagen, there was a dormant open train, I think so train station was there, which they have like converted into a daycare. So we are also searching for some such similar kind of things over here in Jabalpur. So public spaces would be equipped with nature-based soft textured elements and early childhood development facilities like lactation booths and diaper vending machines. Next. So our vision is basically to make Jabalpur accessible to all. So Jabalpur is aiming for independent and safe mobility for ITC age groups across entire city. So as a first step, we are developing child-friendly bus stops and streets. We are also focusing on establishing a traffic park to sensitize children about basic rules and make them habituated. So we over here in Jabalpur, we have strongly believed that children-centric view or the citizen-centric view is very important, and we have conducted stakeholder consultation at various levels while planning all such projects. So next. So this is our church street. Basically, this is our pilot project and has multiple school entry exits. So we are aiming for making it a pedestrian-friendly street with safer drop-in and drop-off, resting, pause spaces, and playful elements. So similar ECD zones are being identified on our GIS to eventually form a network of safer streets connecting to ECD amenities. Next. Evidence-based planning, our vision has strongly changed into evidence-based planning. So Jabalpur also ultimately aims for creating a module development, having all ECD amenities connected through ITC-friendly mobility corridors. And basically, as sir has already mentioned that like in Copenhagen, we have seen the public life app developed by the Gale. So we have also been seeking such kind of technical support from WRI. So we might also we'll be also collecting all the data and focusing on the before and after interventions, and evidence-based planning and climate resilient planning are our main goals. Next. We have been developing sense of ownership and inclusive development, and to realize our vision, we have adopted all inclusive approach. So basically, our in concurrence to this, we have like recently we just had our capacity building workshop and focus group discussion with Anganwadi supervisors and teachers on food safety day, and we have actually tried to build their capacity. So prior to this particular visit, we were actually we city officials in Jabalpur envisaged that parks over here were having just entry exit points and a basic pathway, some slides and swings, and a fountain in the middle. So we have actually changed our approach after this particular study tour, and we have incorporated various like multifunctionality of playground was the one thing, and then opening our public school walls for like everyone, because city has limited spaces. So such kind of things have also come up from our focus group discussion. Next. So we conducted capacity building workshop, as I'm already mentioned, for government agency targeting various hierarchies and departments to induce ITC lens into routine practices. We have actually built the capacity of our garden department, parks department, and shortly we'll be conducting our first like the playground audit, which we have learned in Copenhagen. So I think we'll be starting with our playground audit in the upcoming weeks. Next. Also, one of the most important thing which we believed in was institutional setup. So we have actually created a dedicated cell consisting of stakeholders from women and child development, from traffic police, from municipal corporation, from education department, and various other departments for coherent development, so that we can actually pass on all these learnings to them as well. So whoever is taking up any sort of project related to open spaces, mobility, or related to education or health, so we strongly believe that they must be incorporating ITC lens into that. Next. So lastly, Jabalpur is also ensuring a children-centric approach by making policy-level interventions and innovative funding mechanisms. Like we are trying to incorporate ITC lens into our comprehensive mobility plan. We are also developing an dedicated ITC checklist, which we will be floating with other departments of Jabalpur city. So basically, whatever projects which they are taking up before tendering, they can actually check the ITC elements which they can actually incorporate into that. So we are also seeking financial sustainability through convergence with other department funds. Like for example, there's a mission Kayakalp and some Anganwadis or midday meal programs and other things are going on in Jabalpur. I think everywhere more or less, but we are trying to bring everyone on the same platform. So similarly, the hygiene audits, we are planning to conduct hygiene audits of Anganwadis. we are trying for periodical or safety audit of a playground. Just we saw of Istanbul, like the play master plan of Istanbul, and seeking help from WRI. We'll be also developing our own play master plan, and also we'll be developing our app-based tools for evaluation and monitoring. With all these things, Jabalpur is, I think, all set to realize our vision of city for all under nurturing neighborhood challenge. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for sharing those learnings and also highlighting the importance of behavioral change which you are observing in yourself. Now we have with us Dr. Anita Sharma, who is a counselor in urban development from the Royal Danish Embassy. I'll request her to share her 2 cents. Ma'am, we are not able to hear you. May I request you to try without the headphones? It may work.
Me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear all the learnings that the 3 smart cities here have presented. I'm actually right now in Denmark, listening to all the things that have been said. And really, you have really spot on what Denmark is doing, is that they are taking the holistic approach that whatever development is being done is that they take into the water, climate, people, and everything into one and do the planning, because planning is very important. So I'm really happy that all these learnings have been taken, and also like taking the global but adopting into the local context is very important. And to hear that how Rourkela is doing with this tribal and others is really impressing actually. So very, very happy. And I can maybe give a few suggestions actually, or suggestions or some things which I have observed. Like some people were saying that they will be planting 1,000 trees. So because one of the things in Denmark, when they plant trees, that is also Denmark, when they also plant, because the biodiversity is very important. So the kind of trees that are to be planted and the kind of plantation that has to be done has also to be planned according to the biodiversity, according to what kind of ecology others have to be promoted. So that would be really good that that is also taken into the plan. And also this regarding having the volunteers, because in Denmark, the self-help group or the community is actually volunteers, like parents like us. Because when my kids were going to the daycare center, we were actually working in the daycare center and helping in the daycare centers and taking care of it. So I think by involving the parents and the local citizens in doing that, you will really reach very far. That is also one of the important thing in Denmark, is that the parents, they are the trainers at the football schools, they are the doing things in the daycare center. So that is also one of the things they do here in Denmark, and it works really well because parents know how to take care of the kids. So they will really look after all these things that is implemented in the right way. So in that way, I think you will include all the different layers of the society, because parents and grandparents taking their kids to the daycare center, then you will actually develop not only the child friendly, but the friendly with entire citizens actually. And also when you develop, think about the climate change and the water, because those are one of the important elements in any design that are being done in Denmark, because the climate is changing. So most of these structures, they look like as if they are parks, but below them, there might be a water storage tank or a retention basin. And similarly, whenever they develop a new area, they actually have water retention ponds. So it should be like blue-green infrastructures, because in India, we see a lot of green, but we are missing blue. With that missing blue, it is actually difficult to have this passive cooling and other elements actually. So I think some of my few observations which I have taken is that have this one. And also one of the CEO talked about master plan. Yes, it is a very, very important tool to have that master plan and incorporate all these things in the master plan and have the policy and the audits, so that you can really implement the visions that you really are having. So I think I'm really impressed and looking forward to this, because as you know, Denmark and India, they have recently signed a green strategic partnership, and smart cities and urban development is actually a focus area. And we are collaborating with Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs on this aspect. And we actually recently conducted the city on the World Cycle Day. We had a cycling trip from Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs to the embassy, and we have made a mural. That also shows that the cycling is also a part of this Danish culture. And to be able to have it, you also need to have the last mileage, because if you don't have the last mile connection, it is very difficult to invest most of these things. And if you see the cities of India, they're not more than 10 to 12 kilometers in this one, and their cycling can be a very good transportation medium. So you have to also, when you develop anything, also have the public infrastructure, the cars, the cycles, and the pedestrian. If that can be done in a holistic manner, then I think a lot of these things will fall into place, and you can have those walking streets that are really beautiful. I mean, so that you can walk on the streets and not afraid of walking. Because I remember when I walked from Chanakyapuri to my embassy, I have to go up and down and up and down on the footpath and do across. I hope really that next time when I walk somewhere, that I can really walk on the streets. So I'm really happy that this collaboration between India and Denmark started, even though it has been funded by the Bernal Foundation. But looking forward to this collaboration to continue, and to see how we together can co-create, because as you very well said, that yes, Denmark is doing something, but that is based on the local knowledge there. So getting those global experiences to India and including with the Indian local knowledge, you can really co-create something that can be very well or what you call it, secured for the future. Because the future, a lot of things are changing, both the demography, the climate, and the way people are pursuing the future. So really looking forward for the collaboration under this Green Strategic Partnership. Please, thank you.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. And thanks for those suggestions to the cities, and I'm sure they'll take it up and it will help in their journey. Now I call upon Mr. Sri Kumar Kumaraswamy from WRI India, who also assisted the 3 cities, and he has some learnings to share as well.
Thanks, Kastub. Thanks to the CEOs, commissioners here presented. It was a great learning, and I think we would like to really thank Ministry for arranging this. This has been a great exchange, and also for BVLF for conducting this, and along with Superpool for hosting us in Copenhagen. I'll take this a little bit of opportunity to talk a little bit at the city level transformation which happened in Copenhagen. Maybe some of the cities might, who have this might be new and could be interesting to have a look at it. This was presented by Gale Architects team in the trip, and I have just collected some of the slides from them, and which we can thought really very good explanation of how the transformation of Copenhagen happened over decades, which we have been saying, which Mr. Rahul Kapoor also started with saying that, how this transformation happened. It took a lot of time, and how did this happen? What are the what are the steps which went behind it? I mean, it would be really great to imagine that. Just can you go ahead next? Yeah, streets and parks, predominantly, how to reimagine them. This is what they did over decades. Next. So this kind of big open spaces they managed to create, like at the city level, right? This was a road which was converted into big urban parks and made it totally people friendly. They managed the traffic system such that it's not really making a big difference. There's a whole lot of technical study had gone behind this. Next. Not only that, not only such big scale spaces, but also this kind of little corners on the street, right? You can see this, just by cutting this one free left movement, you can create this nice space at the corner of the city, of the street, and this kind of doing this across everywhere, that makes a big difference, right? Or next. So by doing such spaces, they created this pedestrianized spaces across the city, and this over this 5 decades, right? And you can see these red lines are all pedestrianized areas. Next. And also within the residential areas, this was how it used to be in the central. They have this blocks, urban blocks with internal open spaces. They used to look like this. Next. But they converted even such areas, even in the private spaces, courtyards, all this converted into this kind of green spaces, right? Next. This is how it transformed over. Even we always think, right, how our public spaces are so much vehicle dominated. And this is what Copenhagen also has gone through. They have really gone from here to making these public spaces people friendly, right? People friendly, children friendly, and then it becomes a backdrop for quality of life for everyone. Next. Yeah, just can keep going. Next. This is used to be like this, a town hall square, and this has become like this, right? Then this is one of the prominent streets where a lot of commercial areas, and this has become like this, right? A street of full of commercial activity. And the interesting part is, it seems the commercial activity has increased multiple times, right? In this is a very common discussion in India that if we stop the vehicle, the customers may not come. But in Copenhagen, actually, that has been proved wrong. And they have proved that the commercial activity actually increased rapidly after pedestrianizing it. Next. Yeah, they also opened, I think the CEOs also spoke about this, opening the existing spaces, how to multiply the spaces which is available, open spaces, opening the schoolyards like this, could also add to the amount of public space we have in the city. Next. And also bringing in culture, playing, in multiple ways, relating to the environment for the children they are living in, right? Next. Having spaces for this risky play for everyone, for all the age groups, and that makes a big difference, right? Everybody has something to do in public space. Next. Yes, so these are the changes they did over a period of time, and they created next. Yeah, they created this public space plan, right? It was a very conscious, planned decision to increase public spaces, and they used every opportunity to create these available. I think many. I mean, our CEOs also spoke about this. I'll not go in detail. Next. So the city level transformation, while all these things, spaces were getting created, they were also making it resilient, right? This is an excellent example of a public space. They multiple ways of including resilience into this. They have tried it, making it more, impervious, pervious for water bodies. To create this will act as a open retention soaking point of the water. Still the activities can keep going on. It reduces heat island effects and so on, right? Next. Yeah, I mean cycling, I think 60 around 60 percentage of the people who work or study, they cycle, right? That's a big number, and it has become a culture, you know. Next. And they really do it like, you know, they really make it, they realize that it is healthy. That's a very important turning point. Next. Yeah, so they have, if you calculate the health benefits, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, 1.3 million kilometers of cycling happens every day, and the amount of you know, the health benefits is this has become a quite a big selling point for them as well, for the for doing cycling more systematically. Next. And thinking about air quality and how to take care of young children who tend to get affected by the pollution. So they have taken some interesting steps. Next. This project was done along with the Bernard Van Leer Foundation. They have studied you know, areas, air quality in certain areas, and they have mapped how is the air quality changing over a period of time and the sources of it. The next. And they have come up with strategy at this local level, right? How to create this slightly better air quality spaces, how to attract people to use it rather than going on the main roads, and these kind of micro strategies, and how to, you know, putting solutions towards it. Next. So this is the one of the street. So it's having heavy traffic. There was on-street parking. There was this poor air quality they found, and people are still using it. And then they went on to change it. Next. Change this entire space into something like this, and they have again mapped the air quality, and it's quite interesting to see that this has actually improved the air quality, and the traffic is still functioning. It's going fine. They're rerouted and they're still functioning, and they managed to create better spaces around it, especially where people are most using, the children, young children are most using. I think with that I'll stop. This is some of the glimpses of the work which is happening in Copenhagen, and thanks to Gale Architects team for sharing this. Yeah, I'll end with that. Thanks. Over to you, Kastub.
Thank you, Shri, for sharing that. I'm sure all the participants and cities really learn from this, and some of the usual issues that we face in the cities would be resolved through these practical examples. Now we open the floor for questions. We are slightly over time, but we can take a couple of questions. I can see one question from Adish already in the chat. He has asked, how does the city go for procurement of such non-SOR items? So if any of the city officials who was part of the Copenhagen tour can answer this. And please feel free to add your questions in the chat or raise your hand so that you can ask questions directly. If we have anyone from Rourkela Smart City or Jabalpur Smart City and Indore Smart City and they can answer it, it would be great.
I think I can try and pitch in. So basically, I think a few things. So I think here in Copenhagen, it looked like the way to look at a standard is slightly different from the way we look at, right? And they even the play opportunities, what they create is focused towards, you know, the, you know, experimentation of how children use it, how it can be more playful for them, how it can be more adventurous for them, and so on. And at the same time, they do really follow up with whole lot of audits, right? So is it really working well? Is it really continuing to be safe or not, and so on? So especially where these kind of play opportunities which are created with which looks like it may not be a very come in a very standard SOR format in India, but they think it like the standards are to ensure a way of safety, and you keep following up to really ensure that it is really working the way it was intended, right? So I think that is one way of thinking about it, but definitely we don't have very much clarity on how they broke away from their own standards. That is an interesting question we to inquire further.
Thanks, Sri. Um, any last opportunities for questions? As I don't see anything in the chat, you can unmute yourself and ask your questions directly. I think people have understood everything really well. And if they have any questions, they can definitely get in touch with the CEOs and commissioners who presented today.